So what's going on guys, Kadis here and welcome back to a brand new video. For today we are checking out Squad and we will see if this game is worth playing in 2022. At the beginning of the video we will take a closer look at the game itself. Then we will look into different game modes. Then as this game is realistic FPS shooter, I will explain and share my experience on how the game actually makes you feel like when you're playing it. And then lastly we will go into the gameplay and see how hard or easy it is for a brand new player to pick this game up and just play from the start. So if this sounds interesting to you, then let's get right into it. So Squad is a large-scale online FPS shooter that aims to capture realistic combat through communicating and team play. The core idea behind this game is very simple. Imagine being able to play the main character of a war movie and actually experience a war or a battle that we see in the 21st century movies or even on our TVs. Most of us have played Call of Duty or Battlefield, but those games offer a quick 10 to 20 minute matches with 20 to 30 kills per game and etc. But Squad takes this realistic aspect and goes to a whole different level. Every single player has the same HP, so most of the time you can kill any player with just one bullet, but sometimes you can survive and need to get shot twice. If this happens, that means that you got shot in a shoulder or some other not that important body part. So then the bleeding system comes into play, where you need to call for a medic or you need to use one of your two bandages to stop the bleeding, because if you don't, then you will slowly bleed out. While we are on this topic about medics and bleeding out, at the beginning of the match you can select what role you want to play. So imagine a class system, and depending on which class you pick, you will get different weapons and different abilities to use. So for example, the medic role will get bunch of bandages and healing items that will help them to heal their teammates. And then on the other hand, if you pick a rifleman, then you will get an ammo bag, which you can then place on the ground and your teammates can use it to resupply. Bullets, bandages and other utilities and things that you can use are not infinite, so some players are tasked to resupply your team's bases while others will try to outflank the enemies and much more. But more on this topic I will cover later in this video. So all in all, this class system gives you a bunch of options to pick and choose. But remember that all of these roles are bound to your squad, so usually the best thing is to join a server at the beginning of the match so you can pick the best role you like, because most roles are locked behind one role per squad. So Squad doesn't have a default click to join a match button, so this is how it works. You can join servers which host 24/7 different matches, and before each match a random map gets to be chosen. I've personally have played this game more than 300 hours and I still haven't tried out every single map that this game has to offer. But besides that, before we get into the match, we get to choose to pick a side. The same way the maps get randomly selected, the factions, aka the two sides that you can fight for, will be randomly given to you as an option. So then you can choose to pick a side between United States, Canadian Army, British Army, Russian Ground Forces, Middle Eastern Alliance, Insurgents and Irregular Militia. And I personally haven't ever seen a Middle Eastern Alliance as a selection for a forest map, so I'm assuming that specific maps get specific factions for their selection. But overall, joining a match is very simple. You can pick a server, which I usually recommend to go for a server that you speak their language. Then you choose which faction you want to fight for, then you join a squad, and then lastly you pick a role that you want to play and let the fun begin. As this video is not an in-depth guide but just a simple review, I will try to keep things very simple and quick. But basically joining and finding a team to play is very simple, but it may take an hour or two to get used to the controls and the layout of where everything is located. So let's take a look at the gameplay, and to be honest, if I would need to describe a gameplay in Squad in just one word, it would be chaos, but in a good way. What I mean by chaos in my opinion is the biggest part about real life war and battles. Usually when we watch movies we see our main characters shooting the enemies and never dying, but now imagine that all 100 players are the main characters, and none of them want to die, so this is what we get. At the beginning of my Squad journey I was very pissed off and even at times thought about quitting this game, because every single time I would die it would be from a player camping. But when I really thought about it, every single time I had a problem with this game, it wasn't that there was actually something wrong with the game itself, but it was actually giving me the full experience of of a realistic war simulator. If you have watched a lot of war movies, every single time the heroes are going from a building to building, dodging bullets and always surviving, but this is not the case in real war. When you take a look at real-life documentaries and actual footage of different conflicts around the world, but instead they observe, they try to ambush the enemy and just sit in one place for as long as possible. And I found myself coming back to this point time and time again. Every time my character would die now, instead of getting mad or annoyed about how the enemy players are playing too passive or camping too much, now instead I actually appreciate it on what real-life simulation in a video game looks like, and I try to use this to my advantage. If we just go in depth about Squad as a game, the principle is very simple. You have soldiers and vehicles and then you fight 50v50 war by defending and capturing different points, and then the match can end by one or the other team losing all points, which you can make the enemies lose points by killing them, taking over objectives, holding them and much more. But the actual gameplay where you use weapons and shoot at the enemies is very simple and nothing special. But the actual fun part is how you feel in each second while playing Squad and how realistic of a military simulator it is. So, teamwork is one of the best parts about this game, which I usually put as one of the main reasons of why this game feels so realistic. Usually most players will have access to two radio devices, which is the local radio and squad radio. Squad radio is used to talk with other players in your squad, no matter how close or far you are from each player. And then the local radio is usually the one I use the most, as you can talk with any members of your 50-player team, as long as they are 50 to 100 meters close to you. And just this one feature, being able to talk with players, is game-changing. Being able to hear one guy calling for a medic while the other guys communicate together to defend a point just feels amazing and super fun. I am for sure one of those players who will tell you that you can only play this game with a microphone. At the start you may think that sometimes you are just too tired to talk, but as I've played hundreds of different matches, this is not really that big of a deal. It's important that each player knows English and can talk at least few words, but besides that, players can pick teams who talk more or less depending on how they feel like. So the communicating aspect really depends on the way you play and how much or less you want to do it. I expect every player to be able to talk, but as I've mentioned, you really don't have to say a lot, and most of the time, you should only communicate when there's actually something important to tell. So in a quick summary, to play this game, you will definitely need a microphone, but after your first few games, communicating in a game will be very easy and natural, and depending on what type of squad you join, you can choose to talk more or less, but it really isn't that big of a deal and will definitely improve your game experience. So then, moving over to one of the last parts of this video, and in this section I just wanted to cover maybe a few other features and things I forgot to tell you about the game. So first of all, vehicles are part of this game, but I won't cover this mechanic in detail, because usually experienced players use tanks and other vehicles, and if you just want to go fight and shoot, you never need to be behind the wheel. So just open your map and your squad members will be indicated as green icons. So then you're feel free to go in any vehicle which is lit up green like this, and you really don't need to know anything besides that. Then while we are talking about a map, this map feature in a squad is one of the most important things that will help you improve your experience. So you can open your map by pressing the M key, and a lot of times depending on the map I choose where to go and what to do. But with that said, this game doesn't tell you where the enemy is or where he isn't, so you have to use your map to predict on where the enemy could be. So the way it works, players can put these red marks to indicate where they saw the enemy. So for example, if I'm just purely looking for fights, I spawn in the closest base to the enemies, which is this base, and then I can either way move a bit to the right and try to flank the enemies, or just go straight to them. And the main point of each match is to capture or hold points. So then when you see this red square, that means that your team are right now fighting for that location. So if you go there, you will find enemies to fight, but sometimes the enemies might be on a hill or camping on a river or something else. So again, coming back to the realistic aspect, you never actually know where the enemy is. The way I found this game more enjoyable is to play with my squad members, so then when you get shot or you just shoot someone, you can make callouts and revive each other, and then just go from one point to another one. This map layout may feel strange and hard to tell where you should actually be careful and where not, but after a few hours of gameplay you will get more and more used to it. But again, you will appreciate how hard it is to tell tell where the enemy is, because this is how actually realistic fights play out, and you can never know where the next bullet is coming from. So just follow your team or just go from one point of interest to another one, and you will find always players to fight. And then lastly, I want to mention that yes, there is a lot more I could explain and go in detail about Squad, but in this video I'm just trying to give you the most important info that you should be able to use to decide if you want to play this game or not. So then the last thing before my final conclusions is that this game is very realistic. From one shot, one kill to even players can pick different roles, and some of these roles are squad leaders or even commander, and even sometimes you may find yourself helping out your team securing buildings or building up a fob, which you can do by pressing your number 6 key and using the shovel to dig up a structure that other players place to build, and much more. So overall this game can get complicated if you want to, but Squad really doesn't have that big of a learning curve for new players, and just by playing few matches you will get used to the most things, as the main gameplay still revolves around using your weapon to shoot the enemies and trying to capture points. So now in my last and final conclusions, Squad is everything I expected and even more. Before playing this game you really need to understand of what this game is and what it isn't. I've been always fascinated with war movies, and being able to experience battle just from a computer game is really something else. But with that said, for all the fun and good things that this game has to offer, I personally can't play Squad for more than 3 to 4 hours a day, as it can get repetitive and boring very fast, and sometimes you may find yourself playing in a map where every single enemy is just sitting still in one position and you just keep on dying for no reason. The best part about this game is teamwork, realistic aspect, and how good the game looks like. And the worst parts exactly are the same things. So teamwork can get annoying, especially if you find yourself stuck in a team that doesn't talk or maybe talks too much and is too childish. Then the realistic aspect can be fun when you are in the mood to experience some realistic shooting. But at least for me, after a few hours of gameplay each day it can get boring because of the camping, dying just from one bullet, and slow gameplay. And as I have more than 5,000 hours in different Call of Duties over the years, it really takes time to get used to. And then lastly, the graphics look very good and very realistic, and even the sound of tank shooting or players screaming is very fun. But Squad definitely doesn't have the best performance, as I have 2080 Ti GPU and even I get only from 80 to 100 FPS. So if you want to play this game you need to know that you will experience the negatives with the positives, but as long as you have the same mindset as I have, and if you don't expect to play Squad for 12 to 16 hours a day, but just play this game for a few hours each day and maybe make this game as your secondary game, or for the Squad to be just that game that you play after long hours of work, then this game is definitely worth playing. But of course this wouldn't be a review if I would mention that Squad costs about 45 USD dollars, so for me it's definitely worth buying. Before buying the game I watched a lot of Squad videos in my free time and I knew exactly what I was buying. So as long as you're ready to pay money and take the game for what it is, a realistic FPS shooter with a lot of camping, realistic graphics, and a microphone required for communicating, then this is the game for you. To be honest, this game is sometimes way too realistic. I didn't mention this, but yes, you can even kill your teammates. And trust me, in the line of fire, it is really not that easy to tell a friend from an enemy. When I was making this video, I looked up a statistic that on average in real life wars, that from 5 to 15% of all casualties are from friendly fire. So this is yet another aspect that Squad mirrors perfectly. So in a quick summary, if you are looking for a realistic FPS shooter that can get annoying of being too realistic, then this is the game for you. So with all this said, I really do appreciate everyone for watching guys, and I hope you enjoyed it. If you have any suggestions, feedback, or other game reviews that you would like to see in the next video, then feel free to leave your comments in the comment section down below. And while you're doing that, please click like, subscribe, and enable that notification bell, so this way you could support the channel and you wouldn't miss any more amazing content from me. With all this said, you have an amazing day and I'll catch you in my next video. So take it easy, peace.
Yo, I ain't here for the money, I ain't here for the fame. Though it might be nice to own a jet plane, I'ma do it all for you. Come along and see it's true. But